CEOs of the major grocery chains, three of the major grocery chains, they appeared at Agriculture Committee last week. I'll get into your testimony because your I guess cross-examination of those executives. But first, I want to talk about Jagmeet Singh, the leader of the NDP. He was at committee as well. He was grilling the executives, specifically Galen Weston of the Loblaws. But what was abundantly evident to me, not only does he not know how the economy works and how the grocery chain works, what stuck out at me is he was complaining about the price of groceries, but all along that chain, he supported tax increases. He probably supports a fertilizer ban. He definitely supports the carbon tax. So every piece that would have an impact on the cost of the end product, the groceries and the store shelves, he actually supported all of those. It made no sense to me. And you were there. You had to take this all in.
Absolutely. It's completely hypocritical of him, actually, because like you said, he is supporting the Liberal policies that are actually contributing to the agricultural sector facing a lot of challenges right now. Number one would be the carbon tax. He's contributing to propping up the Liberal government by agreeing with a carbon tax. When we're saying carbon tax is penalizing farmers, it's increasing costs of production, fertilizer tariffs coming in from Russian fertilizer last spring, the reduction in fertilizer emissions. He is propping up the Liberal government, which is all these bad policies that we're seeing, and he is directly contributing to actual inflation in our grocery stores.
Yeah, it just boggled me. He was going on about the price of groceries, supported everything to bring up those prices, never really had a solution on what he would like to see done, which is fine, I guess, for the leader of the fourth party in the House of Commons. But at the same time, what did he want? Did he want the government to nationalize the grocery chain? I couldn't figure out his line of attack here.
Well, I think what people were questioning, and we saw it on Twitter a lot last night, they talked about taxing excess profits. Well, there's no definition for excess profits, but companies in this country are allowed to make profits. In fact, we want farmers to be able to make profits. And part of the reason why we were asking questions of these CEOs is because we're finding, especially in the produce industry, our farmers are not making profits or very, very little profits, while these grocery stores are making huge profits on their backs. And we can talk about some of the things that these grocery chains are doing to farmers. And the biggest contributor to farmers going out of business is these grocery stores. They nickel and dime our farmers to the tune of tens to hundreds of thousands of dollars, actually, for many. Consumers aren't aware, but in order for a farmer to deliver from the farm gate to a distribution center or to a grocery store, they are bound by conduct with such things as fees for unloading their goods at the distribution center. They're fined for late penalties if a truck gets stuck in traffic, let's say, and makes it to the distribution center late for their appointment time. They also have something called chargeback. So when farmers are being paid by these grocery stores, they get these large invoices, and you have to be an accountant to understand what you're getting paid. It's not as simple as, I'm going to say, I'll sell you a bag of potatoes for $5, so you're going to pay me $5 for that bag. No, you're going to pay me $5, but then you're going to charge me to unload them at the distribution center. You're going to charge me a percentage of what you're paying me back for your marketing or retail fees, and you're going to charge me for late or fines or for the privilege of just being able to do business with you as a grocery store. And we're saying that's not right. Farmers should be able to read their invoice and be paid exactly for what's on their invoice. If it's $5, they should be paid $5. And that's what I was asking the grocers yesterday. And for the last number of years, I've been asking, along with industry, for a grocery code of conduct, which would actually help the grocery stores be able to be accountable for some of these charges that our farmers are facing. And again, it's for the privilege of delivering the produce that this grocery store has ordered to their distribution center. So some of the high fees we're seeing in the grocery store, for instance, are not getting back to the farmer. The bottom line is, I'll sell something for, let's say, $2 to the distribution center. They're turning around and selling it for $4 or $5 at the grocery store. So we know that they're making a lot of profit on produce. The rest of the goods I can't speak for, but this is where our farmers are really feeling it. Why are they making so much profit while we're barely making ends meet in selling them the produce in the first place?
I should point out I'm not defending the big grocery stores by any means. I want to make that perfectly clear. I do encourage lots of competition. Unfortunately, we're not getting that.
And that's another problem in itself.
Actually, that's where I was heading.
We have an oligopoly in this country where we have 5 major stores that control 80% of groceries in this country. And 3 of the major grocer CEOs were before our committee, as you said, last week. And we expect to hear from Walmart and Costco representatives. I know an invitation will be going out from the Agriculture Committee shortly, and we hope to hear from them as well. But when you have 3 major chains controlling the grocery industry in Canada, there's not enough competition. And in fact, we also had the Competition Bureau before committee last week, and I was asking them that. Can you look into whether there's an abuse of dominance in this industry, because we need more competition. We saw a bread price fixing scandal a few years back, and so that's where Canadians are a little cautious in their, they have mistrust in these grocery stores, and they don't believe what they have to say after that, because there is a lack of competition, and that scandal proved it.
I think your line of questioning was really interesting, because I don't think a lot of Canadians know about all these hidden fees that farmers actually have to pay. And you mentioned one which was totally just mind-boggling to me, and it was the fact that the farmers have to pay the grocery store to unload their produce from the farmer's truck. That, I don't know if that happens anywhere else across the spectrum here, but
it doesn't happen anywhere else in the world when it comes to food.
Yeah.
And I mean, we're talking about food security in this country and globally right now, and we have the most arable land, the best land to farm in the world, and we could be feeding the world, but unfortunately, because of some of these crazy and ridiculous fees that farmers are facing, it's actually pushing them out of business. And if it's not directly bankrupting them, and we have seen some instances where, for instance, a chain store will promise somebody a specific order or a specific product, and farmers quite often actually grow specific varieties just for a particular grocery store. But if they cancel that order, I mean, these farmers plan months in advance, have to put the crop in the ground, wait for it, and then all of a sudden the grocery store doesn't take it. Well, there's nobody else to sell it to, because there is only 5 major chain stores in this country. So it's punishing them there, but then it's punishing them all along the line, whether it's, like you said, the fees for unloading these trucks. It's crazy. We're not going to see next generations get into the business of produce farming, because quite frankly, it's too risky and it's too expensive to get in the business, and nobody wants to deal with chain stores when they can't read their invoice, something so basic.
One thing that was mentioned at committee outside of, I don't want to go too far from the grocery stores hammering away at farmers. I think that's really important we keep on this. The other thing that was briefly touched on at the committee was the kind of making it easier for greenhouses to spring up and do business. But at the same time, the greenhouses can't do business in the country because of the carbon tax. Of course, they had to get an exemption from the carbon tax, something Jagmeet Singh and Justin Trudeau vastly support. So again, these are barriers that could be a solution to rising grocery prices, right? Competition is one, but also increasing supply. When you have more supply, price goes down. And if we had the ability to grow more here at home, a lot of this could be dealt with domestically.
That's very true. And one statistic I'll throw out there at you is that 44% of growers are actually selling at a loss to these stores. And unfortunately, because of competition from, let's say, California, it's cheaper to import, for instance, a head of lettuce and truck it all the way from California to here in Ontario or anywhere across this country than it is for a farmer to grow lettuce in a greenhouse just outside Toronto and truck it to a distribution center in Toronto area. So I mean, these grocery stores, they're in the business of making money. They're not in the business of helping keep farmers alive here, which is quite sad, and it's not their responsibility, but it is, I think, their responsibility to pay farmers fairly. But we have so much land, we have tons of greenhouses, but like I said earlier, farmers want to sell their produce to grocery stores in Canada, but they actually get paid better selling it to the United States. And it's cost prohibitive with government regulations like a carbon tax, our high energy prices, because right now, farmers are only exempt for on-fuel from the carbon tax on farm use for their fuel. And we have a private member's bill before the House right now by one of our colleagues, which would exempt all usage on farm for heating barns or the extra for heating greenhouses. But it's competition in Canada based on government policies that are actually hindering our industry in this country from expanding.
And it's really, just clamping down the ability for, and you mentioned it just a few minutes ago, for the family farm to continue, but also young people to get into the business to produce food, because it is a great trade to be in, right?
It's amazing.
Feeling to provide, to grow something, to watch it, feed many and millions, right?
Absolutely.
It's a great feeling.
Well, I have a little experience in that, being a third-generation farmer. My family's been in the produce business, and I'm still in the potato business with my brother right now. And it is a great feeling, and farmers are really proud to feed Canadians and the world. We're thinking globally, but we're growing locally, and we're stewards of our land. And that's one thing to drive home to Canadians who are watching right now. We are probably some of the biggest environmentalists that are out there. If you look, I'm third generation. There's some family farms in this country that are fourth, fifth, sixth generation, and they're all farming on the same land. And if we're not taking care of our land, we're not making sure the proper nutrients are put in there and keeping care of the waterways and streams, that is our bread and butter, and we won't have our farm anymore, and we won't have our careers, and we won't be able to feed Canadians if we're not being good stewards of our land.
And that goes to the next step, which is kind of the big government with the only select elitist corporations running everything. If the small family farm goes out of business, the smaller farms, medium farms go out of business, the grocery stores still need to get some product, because there will be people who want to buy it. Obviously, we all need to eat. That just makes sense. Some of these stores are actually buying land and farms themselves and almost producing under their own brand name or an offshoot of their company for their main stores. And this goes into the whole kind of the bigger government. How big is government? How big are these corporations? When competition is stifled, the barriers to competition, you don't allow anyone to enter the marketplace, so you have a monopoly on the food. It's almost like our telecom industry here in Canada. That's another major concern. When you only have a handful of big corporations running certain industries, and the food supply scares everyone, because you can do without a phone. Well, not really, but you could probably get along if you actually had to, but you can't get away too long without eating.
No, you're right, but I think that that's more of a problem in the US versus in Canada, because we do have systems in place. We have our supply management system when it comes to our dairy, our chickens, poultry, eggs, but on the produce side of things, which I can speak to, it is more and more expensive to get in the business. Land values are so high right now, just even buying a tractor or buying the equipment that's necessary. If a farmer were to want to start into the business, they are going to need millions of dollars just to start up. Whereas back in the day, I think when my grandparents were clearing their land and starting to farm in their area, the costs relative to even inflation and everything today were very, very small comparatively. But what we can be proud of in this country is that farmers are actually growing more on less land because of innovation. And if our farmers aren't profitable, they're not innovating. And farmers are the best innovators there are out there, because they're constantly working to do more with less, because costs are going up and up and up for inputs. Costs are going up for materials, whether it's packaging, labor costs. So they're constantly innovating. So what we need to do is protect our farmers, make sure that they can continue to farm and innovate, and therefore we're going to have a more robust system in this country. But I mean,
until the government puts stipulations on how much fertilizer they can use.
And that's a big problem too, because like I said, farmers won't put anything on their land or their crops that they don't need to. Why? Because it's cost prohibitive. It comes out of their bottom line. And I just talked about how the grocery stores will only pay a certain price. So if a farmer's costs go up and the grocery stores won't pay them anymore, then who's absorbing that? That's being absorbed by our farm families. That's farm families not being able to send their kids to school and pay for an education. It's not being able to reinvest money in their business to innovate their product, innovate what they're doing. And we're not seeing super small farms anymore because of the way the structure is in the grocery industry in Canada. If you cannot supply what a grocery store wants you to supply, then you're not going to have their business, is the bottom line. So you have to be able to farm a lot or provide a lot of product to a grocery store year round to even get that contract. So that's why we're not seeing small family farms. We're seeing more medium-sized farms, but they're all still family owned. They're not corporate farms.
Grocery code of conduct, how will that help?
Well, that's going to help protect farmers. Farmers have been asking this for a long time. The problem is that we can't get the CEOs to commit to the grocery code of conduct. So far, Sobeys which is Empire Foods Group, has been a great advocate for the grocery code of conduct. Metro has committed to it, but Loblaws won't commit to it. And it would at least help the industry so that these grocers will have something to stand by so that farmers are being treated fairly is the bottom line. It's not just to protect farmers, it's also to protect consumers as well. So it'd be great to see this code of conduct go through. Not sure when we'll hear something back from the working group, but it was about 2.5 years ago where I was able to kind of push the Liberals when I was Ag Critic to start working with industry on this, and the provinces are on board with this, because the bottom line is we need to protect not just consumers but protect our farmers so that we can protect our food supply here in Canada.
When Galen Weston was at committee, did you get an update on how their freezer acquisition program was going? The $12 million, have they spent that wisely?
I'm sure they've spent
portfolio?
That, but no, we didn't get a chance to talk about that. But I know that that's a concern that a lot of taxpayers in Canada have. Why on earth did a big corporation making hundreds of millions of dollars a year in profits get taxpayer-funded money, $12 million, to buy new freezers? It's another question we have for the Liberals and their mismanagement of our finances in this country. And hopefully we'll be able to see the Liberals out and get some fiscal responsibility back into this country, thanks to Conservatives and our next Prime Minister, Pierre Poilievre.
I hope so. Get some fiscal sanity. Just some sanity in general in Ottawa would be nice sometimes.
Exactly.
As you know, I always give the guests the last word, so the floor is yours. You can talk about the agriculture sector. You can talk about whatever you want.
Sure. Well, I'll just say, Jamie, Conservatives are going to continue fighting for not only consumers, because we know that prices are high for groceries right now, but we're going to continue fighting for our farmers who, without them, we would not be eating in this country. And so I'm going to thank all the farmers out there for all the hard work you do every day to feed Canadians and feed the world.
Lianne Rood, Member of Parliament, Lambton, Kent, Middlesex, also a fierce fighter for the agriculture sector. She always has been, always will be. We thank her for her time. Thank you for your time. We ask that you like, comment, subscribe, share this program. Hit the bell if you're on YouTube. That'll send you a notification when we go live. New content every single Tuesday, 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Don't forget, you can download it too. Listen to it. Platforms like CastBox, iTunes, Google Play, and Spotify. Until next week, low taxes, less government, more freedom. That's the blueprint.